The active shooter had military-style training, but he didn't know that the woman organizing student evacuations from room 204 was Colonel Sarah Collins, an A-10 pilot who'd flown 247 combat missions and earned the nickname Guardian Angel for protecting ground troops under fire. This time, the troops she was protecting were wearing backpacks instead of body armor. Welcome to Secret Human Stories. Before I tell you this incredible story of combat leadership and protective instincts, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button. Because sometimes the most dangerous situations are handled by people whose training prepared them for much worse. Sarah Collins was exactly what Lincoln High School needed in a math teacher. At 41, she had the perfect combination of patience and authority that made even the most challenging students respect her classroom. For 3 years, she'd been teaching algebra and geometry to teenagers who thought mathematics was irrelevant to their lives, somehow making quadratic equations feel important and trigonometry seem achievable. Room 204 was Sarah's domain. 30 desks arranged for optimal learning, mathematical posters covering the walls, and a whiteboard where she performed daily miracles of making abstract concepts concrete. Her students appreciated that Miss Collins never talked down to them, never lost her temper, and had an uncanny ability to explain complex problems in ways that suddenly made sense. The faculty at Lincoln High respected Sarah's professionalism. She arrived early, stayed late to help struggling students, and maintained the kind of calm presence that made crisis situations feel manageable. During fire drills, lockdown exercises, and emergency situations, other teachers noticed that Sarah seemed to know exactly what to do, moving with a confidence that suggested experience beyond typical educator training. But there was something about Sarah Collins that nobody at Lincoln High School could have imagined. The steady hands that wrote equations on whiteboards had once controlled the flight stick of an A-10 Thunderbolt II, the Air Force's most lethal close air support aircraft. The calm voice that explained mathematical concepts to teenagers had once coordinated precision strikes that saved the lives of ground troops under enemy fire. From 2003 to 2018, Colonel Sarah Collins had served as an A-10 pilot with the 442nd Fighter Wing, specializing in close air support missions in some of the world's most dangerous combat zones. For 15 years, she'd flown the aircraft known as the Warthog, a flying tank designed specifically to protect friendly forces from enemy ground attacks. Sarah's military record was exceptional by any standard: 247 combat missions across 4 deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan, with a mission success rate of 100% and 0 friendly fire incidents. She'd earned the Distinguished Flying Cross, 2 Bronze Stars, and the Air Medal with 11 oak leaf clusters. Among ground forces, she was known as Guardian Angel 6, the call sign for a pilot who could deliver precise fire support within danger-close distances without risking friendly casualties. But Sarah's specialty hadn't been traditional air-to-ground attack missions. Her unique expertise was what military professionals call troops in contact scenarios, situations where friendly forces were under direct enemy fire and needed immediate close air support to survive. These missions required split-second decision-making, perfect communication with ground controllers, and the ability to deliver lethal force with surgical precision while operating in the chaos of active combat. The psychological demands of this work were extraordinary. Every mission Sarah flew meant that American soldiers were fighting for their lives on the ground below, counting on her accuracy and judgment to distinguish between friend and foe in rapidly changing tactical situations. The margin for error was 0. A miscalculation could kill the people she was trying to protect. Over 15 years of combat operations, Sarah had developed skills that few people possessed: the ability to process complex tactical information under extreme stress, to coordinate multiple elements in high-pressure situations, and to make life-or-death decisions while maintaining perfect precision under fire. These skills had saved the lives of hundreds of ground troops who never knew the name of the pilot, providing their guardian angel support. Sarah's transition out of military service in 2018 had been carefully planned. Combat stress, accumulated fatigue from multiple deployments, and a desire to contribute to society in a different way had led her to pursue education as a second career. When she discovered her passion for teaching mathematics, it felt like finding a new mission, using her analytical mind and leadership skills to help young people develop the problem-solving abilities they'd need for successful futures. For 3 years, Sarah had successfully convinced herself that her combat experience was an artifact of a former life, that the tactical awareness and crisis management skills she'd developed were unnecessary in peaceful suburban classrooms. She'd learned to relax her constant vigilance, to trust that the most dangerous thing she'd face was a difficult parent-teacher conference, and to focus on preparing lesson plans instead of mission briefings. But some skills don't retire, even when the person carrying them tries to. And on Friday morning, November 8th, during third-period algebra class at Lincoln High School, those skills would prove that some missions never really end. They just find new, more important ways to serve. The day had started normally. Sarah was teaching her favorite lesson, solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula, to her third-period class of 28 sophomores. The students were engaged, working through practice problems with the kind of focused attention that made teaching rewarding. Sarah was helping Jessica Martinez understand discriminants when the first gunshots echoed through the school's east corridor. Sarah's military training activated before her conscious mind processed the threat. 15 years of combat missions had conditioned her to recognize the sound of rifle fire, to instantly assess tactical situations, and to shift from civilian mode to command mode when lives were at stake. The gunshots were close, maybe 150 meters from her classroom, and the pattern suggested an active shooter with military-style weapons and training. "Everyone on the floor now," Sarah commanded, her voice taking on the authority she'd used when directing close air support over enemy territory. "Get behind the desks and stay low." The students, who'd never heard this tone from their normally gentle math teacher, immediately complied. Sarah's command presence was absolute. These weren't suggestions, they were orders from someone who expected instant obedience in life-or-death situations. Sarah moved to her classroom window, conducting the same tactical assessment she'd performed hundreds of times from the cockpit of her A-10. Threat location, civilian positions, escape routes, communication requirements, available resources. The active shooter was moving systematically through the school's east wing, and the sound pattern suggested he was headed toward the main corridor where over 1,200 students would be trapped during class changes. "Miss Collins, what's happening?" whispered Tommy Rodriguez, one of her most outspoken students, now crouched behind his desk with fear in his eyes. "Someone dangerous is in the school," Sarah explained calmly while her mind processed tactical options. "I'm going to get you all to safety, but I need you to follow my instructions exactly. Can you do that?" 28 heads nodded in unison. They'd never seen their math teacher like this, but something in her demeanor made them trust that she knew exactly what she was doing. Sarah pulled out her cell phone and dialed 911, but she wasn't calling for help. She was providing tactical intelligence to law enforcement the same way she'd coordinated with ground controllers during combat missions. "This is Colonel Sarah Collins, retired Air Force, Lincoln High School, room 204. Active shooter in East Wing. Estimated location corridor C-2, moving toward main hallway. I have 28 students secured, requesting immediate tactical response and coordination for mass evacuation. I'm prepared to assist with command and control." The 911 operator was initially confused by the military terminology, but the calm authority in Sarah's voice and the precision of her information immediately elevated the call to the emergency command center. Sarah's next decision would determine whether 1,200 students lived or died. The standard lockdown protocol called for teachers to secure their classrooms and wait for law enforcement. But Sarah knew from combat experience that passive defense got people killed when facing a determined enemy with superior firepower. The shooter was moving toward areas where hundreds of students would be trapped with no escape routes. "Listen carefully," Sarah told her students. "We're not staying here. We're going to move through the school and help get other students to safety. I need you to move when I say move, stop when I say stop, and trust that I know how to keep you alive." Sarah opened her classroom door and began what was essentially a tactical advance through hostile territory. Using hand signals she'd learned in military training, she moved her students in a tactical formation that provided maximum protection while maintaining mobility. Every movement was calculated, using cover provided by lockers and walls, avoiding exposure to long corridors where the shooter might have clear fields of fire. But Sarah wasn't just evacuating her own students. As she moved through the school, she began coordinating with other teachers, turning a chaotic emergency into a military precision operation. "Mrs. Peterson, room 206, Sarah called quietly to a teacher who was hiding in her classroom with 15 students. "Follow my lead. We're establishing an evacuation corridor to the west exit. Sarah, the lockdown protocol says we should stay put, Mrs. Peterson replied. The protocol assumes law enforcement can respond faster than the threat can advance, Sarah explained, with the authority of someone who'd coordinated under fire. That assumption is wrong. We move now, or students die. The conviction in Sarah's voice convinced Mrs. Peterson to trust her judgment. Soon, Sarah was leading a column of over 60 students and teachers through the school's corridors, using tactical movement principles to avoid the shooter while establishing safe evacuation routes for other trapped personnel. Sarah's radio communications with emergency responders had evolved from simple information sharing to full tactical coordination. The incident commander had recognized that the person calling from inside the school had military command experience and was effectively serving as their forward observer in a hostile environment. Guardian Angel 6, this is command. Can you confirm shooter location and provide tactical assessment? Hearing her old call sign activated every combat instinct Sarah had developed over 15 years of close air support missions. Command, Guardian Angel 6. Shooter is ex-military, organized, systematic. He's moving toward the main corridor during class change. We have approximately 4 minutes before he reaches maximum target density. I'm coordinating internal evacuation and can provide real-time tactical intelligence. Guardian Angel 6, you are authorized to coordinate internal operations. SWAT team is en route. ETA 6 minutes. Sarah was now functioning as a forward air controller on the ground, providing the same kind of tactical coordination she'd once used to guide precision airstrikes. But instead of directing weapons onto targets, she was directing students away from danger. The next 20 minutes became a masterclass in tactical evacuation under fire. Sarah moved through Lincoln High School like she was advancing through enemy territory, using every skill she'd learned during combat operations to protect civilian personnel in a hostile environment. She established rally points where students could gather safely, coordinated communication between trapped teachers and emergency responders, and provided continuous tactical updates to SWAT teams approaching the building. Most importantly, she maintained the kind of calm leadership that prevented panic from turning an emergency evacuation into a deadly stampede. Room 118, this is Guardian Angel 6, Sarah radioed to a teacher trapped with 30 students. Shooter has passed your location moving east. You have a clear route to west exit. Move now. Stay low. Follow the green arrows I've placed on the walls. Sarah had been using masking tape from her classroom to mark safe evacuation routes, creating a navigation system that allowed teachers to move their students to safety even when they couldn't see the entire tactical situation. The breakthrough came when Sarah identified the shooter's pattern and was able to predict his movements. Using skills developed during combat missions where she'd tracked enemy positions and movement patterns, she realized that the shooter was systematically clearing the school from east to west, which meant she could establish safe zones in areas he'd already cleared. Command, Guardian Angel 6. Shooter pattern analysis complete. He's conducting a systematic sweep east to west. I can establish safe assembly areas in cleared sections and coordinate mass evacuation during his reload periods. Guardian Angel 6, you have command authority for internal operations. Coordinate all evacuation activities. For the next 15 minutes, Sarah Collins ran a military-style evacuation operation from inside an active shooter situation. She coordinated the movement of over 900 students and faculty, established multiple safe zones, and provided real-time tactical intelligence that allowed SWAT teams to position themselves for optimal engagement. The operation culminated when Sarah's tactical analysis allowed law enforcement to predict the shooter's location and timing perfectly. When SWAT teams engaged the shooter in the main corridor, he was isolated from civilian personnel because Sarah had evacuated everyone from his projected path 15 minutes earlier. The shooter was neutralized with 0 casualties among students and faculty. 1,247 people had been evacuated from Lincoln High School in a coordinated operation that emergency response experts would later describe as textbook tactical evacuation under hostile conditions. When the FBI conducted their after-action review, they found that Sarah's coordination had prevented what could have been one of the deadliest school shootings in American history. The shooter had been armed with enough ammunition to kill hundreds of people, and his tactical training suggested he could have achieved those numbers if students and faculty had remained trapped in classrooms following standard lockdown protocols. But the most remarkable discovery was that the entire evacuation had been coordinated by a high school math teacher whose combat experience had been unknown to everyone at the school. "Ma'am, your tactical coordination saved every life in that building," FBI Special Agent Jennifer Martinez told Sarah during the investigation debrief. "Your real-time intelligence and evacuation management were at the level we'd expect from Special Operations Command personnel." Sarah's response was simple. "I just did what I was trained to do. Protect people who can't protect themselves." The story of the combat pilot turned math teacher made national news, but Sarah declined all interview requests. She wasn't interested in fame or recognition. She just wanted to return to teaching algebra and helping students discover that mathematics could solve problems more complex than quadratic equations. But returning to normal wasn't entirely possible after the entire school community learned that their math teacher was actually a decorated combat veteran whose quick thinking and tactical expertise had saved their lives. Students at Lincoln High began seeing Sarah differently. The respect they'd always felt was now combined with awe. Their teacher wasn't just someone who understood complex mathematical concepts. She was someone who could protect them in the most dangerous situations imaginable. Parents started volunteering more time at school events, not just to support their children's education, but to spend time around someone they knew would keep their kids safe. The trust they'd always felt in Sarah's teaching abilities was now reinforced by knowledge of her protective capabilities. But the children seemed to adapt to Sarah's dual identity more easily than the adults. During her first class after the incident, sophomore Maria Santos raised her hand with a question. "Miss Collins, when you were a pilot, did you use math to save people?" Sarah smiled, recognizing an opportunity to connect her military experience with her educational mission. "Every day, Maria. Navigation, targeting calculations, fuel management, timing coordination. Mathematics was essential to every mission. The same problem-solving skills we use to find x in algebra equations can be used to save lives in emergency situations." "So math really is important?" asked Tommy Rodriguez, the student who'd questioned the relevance of quadratic equations just weeks earlier. "Math is one of the most important tools for protecting people and solving real-world problems," Sarah confirmed. "The equations we practice here could help you design safer buildings, calculate emergency response times, or coordinate rescue operations. Mathematics isn't just about getting correct answers. It's about learning to think clearly under pressure." The weeks following the incident brought changes to Sarah's role at Lincoln High. The school district asked her to develop emergency response protocols for all schools in the region, drawing on her tactical expertise to improve protection procedures. The state education department invited her to train teachers in crisis leadership, and law enforcement agencies began consulting with her on active shooter response in educational environments. But the most significant change was personal. Sarah realized that she hadn't really left military service behind. She'd found a way to continue her protective mission in a different context, teaching students to think analytically, to solve complex problems, and to remain calm under pressure was just another form of the guardian angel mission she'd performed overseas. 6 months after the incident, Sarah received a letter from the Air Force recognizing her actions as exemplifying the values of military service in civilian life. The letter noted that her tactical leadership had saved innocent lives and reflected the highest traditions of Air Force service to community and nation. But the recognition that meant most to Sarah came from an unexpected source, a letter signed by every student she'd evacuated that day, thanking her not just for saving their lives, but for showing them that their math teacher was also their protector. "You taught us that heroes don't always wear uniforms," the letter read. "Sometimes they wear cardigans and help us with homework. Thank you for being our guardian angel." Today, Sarah Collins still teaches mathematics at Lincoln High School. She still makes quadratic equations seem relevant and trigonometry feel achievable. Her students know that Miss Collins is someone special, someone who protects them in ways that go beyond helping them pass algebra tests. But Sarah has also embraced her role as a bridge between military and civilian communities. She speaks at veterans events about transitioning military skills to educational careers, and she mentors other combat veterans who want to serve in schools. Her message is simple. The protective instincts that served in military operations can serve equally well in civilian classrooms. The whiteboard in room 204 still displays mathematical equations, but now it also serves as a reminder that problem-solving skills learned in peaceful classrooms can save lives in dangerous situations. Sarah's students understand that mathematics isn't just about abstract concepts. It's about developing the analytical thinking that can protect communities and solve real-world challenges. Sarah's story teaches us something profound about the nature of service and protection. The skills developed for military combat can be transformed into tools for civilian education and emergency response. The pilot who once protected ground troops from enemy fire can become the teacher who protects students from ignorance and danger while maintaining the same guardian angel mission that defined her military career. Sometimes, protection comes from providing close air support to troops under fire. Sometimes it comes from teaching students to think critically and solve complex problems. Sometimes it comes from coordinating tactical evacuations during school emergencies. Sarah Collins learned to provide all three forms of protection, and her students are safer and smarter because of it. The combat pilot who became a math teacher never stopped being a guardian angel. She just found new ways to watch over the people who needed protection, whether they were wearing military uniforms in combat zones or carrying backpacks in high school hallways. Guardian Angel 6 had landed in room 204, and 1,200 students were alive, because sometimes the most important missions are flown from mathematics classrooms, coordinating evacuations instead of airstrikes, protecting minds as well as lives.